Hey guys, welcome back to the LearnAPCalc series here at LearnAP. Today we'll be talking about a quick review of the unit circle. We'll talk about how to read the unit circle and some techniques to remember the unit circle easier. The unit circle is pretty fundamental, so if you have trouble remembering angles or values, I definitely recommend that you watch this video because it's very important that you know the unit circle. As usual, leave a comment if you're confused or have questions. You can also ask in the weekly live streams we do every Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Other than that, let's get started. Alright, so if we want to memorize unit circle better, we should probably understand what these values mean on the unit circle first. So what we basically have is we have angles from the origin here, and I'm denoting them as theta. So here we have this angle pi over 6, or theta equals pi over 6. And that brings me to my first rule, is that the coordinates on the unit circle are written as cosine of theta, comma, sine of theta. So here at theta equals pi over 6, right here, we have this coordinate, root 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. And all this simply means is that the cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2, and the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So cosine is x, sine is y. These coordinates are representing the cosine of the angle at that coordinate, and then the sine of that angle at that coordinate. My second rule is that if you're having trouble memorizing the unit circle, memorize only the quadrant 1 angles and coordinates. So we can basically forget about these angles for a second. Just memorize these ones right here. Pi over 3, pi over 4, and pi over 6. Now once we have that done, we can use a simple method to find all these other angles right here, the values at those angles that we haven't memorized. So the first one is we're going to want to determine the denominator of the angle that you want to figure out. So let's say I want to find what is the value at 7 pi over 6. What are the coordinates here? I've only memorized quadrant 1, so that's all I have to go with. Well, first we're going to want to determine the denominator of this angle, which in this case is 6. So 1, 6. Alright, so next we're going to want to find the quadrant 1 angle with the same denominator and write out that quadrant 1 angle's coordinates. So from step 1 we know that the denominator of the previous angle was 6, which lines up with the angle pi over 6 in the first quadrant, because pi over 6 denominator is 6. And then we just want to write out its coordinates that we've memorized, which in this case is root 3 over 2, comma 1/2. After that, we're going to want to determine the quadrant of the angle we're trying to find. So we're trying to find the angle 7 pi over 6, which is in the third quadrant. So I'll write quadrant 3. If you didn't know that, we can just simply tell that by seeing that 7 pi over 6 is greater than pi, but less than 3 pi over 2. So less than this, but greater than this, which is the third quadrant. Alright, and so for our final step, we're going to want to change the signs of the quadrant 1 angle's coordinates based on the quadrant of the angle we want to figure out. So the angle we want to figure out is in quadrant 3, as determined by step 3. And we already have our quadrant 1 angle's coordinates. So all we have to do here is change the sign. In quadrant 3, x is negative, as is y. And so this is that angle. And as we can see, double check here, that it is in fact negative root 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. This seems like a little bit convoluted and long, but once you get the hang of it, you can do this pretty quickly, and it's much easier than having to memorize all of the angles here. Alright guys, so that's going to about do it for this video. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and be sure to subscribe for future content. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for updates about our new videos and live streams, which we do every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern, where we answer your questions about AP Calc. Links for that will also be in the description. Leave a comment if you're still confused about anything, or also any other comments on the video in general. Other than that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.